hear you all right.
Hello and welcome back to Range Card Review. Today we're going to be taking a look at a scope that I've been using for quite a while now. I've had it for about 4 to 5 years, maybe 6. I don't know, it's kind of fuzzy how long I've had it. But we're going to be taking a look at it. The scope in question is the Vortex Venom 5 to 25 with the EBR7C in MRAD. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start with what came before it, my criteria for that, how the criteria changed, why I decided to get this scope, and then from there we'll go into specs and how long I've been using it and what my impressions are after all this time with this particular scope. So it's not going to be something like, hey, it's just this thing at this price point and I want to review it. It's just, this is a scope that I've been using for quite a while. It's done me fairly well. And I think a review like this is kind of warranted because I don't see a lot of these or a lot with this much experience on one particular item. Because most of the stuff that you see on social media, YouTube, things like that, tend to be, content creator gets product from company. Content creator uses it for maybe a couple of months. Content creator does review, and that's it. Whereas I said, this is something I bought with my own money. I have no relation with Vortex whatsoever. It's literally a scope that I've used in competition for, roughly 5 years. And I've got a lot of rounds on it, and these are just my thoughts on the matter. So, that being said, let's start off with the criteria I had previously that led me to this particular optic. And just so you know, so it's lived on 2 different guns. It's lived on the one you see here for most of its life, and it also lived for a short time on a 20-pound AR-10 and 308. And we're talking sub 500 rounds for that. But the vast majority of its life been on this 5.56 gun. So, what was my criteria that led me to this? So initially, when I built this gun, at the time, I had used a lot of buroscopes in the past, and I'd used a lot of more Benchrest style scopes because I had done a lot of F-class before. And then once I saw that this gas gun series got announced that I shoot a lot in, I was like, oh, that looks fun. Because back in F-class, I would shoot, a similar setup to this. But it was very simple target dot reticles, very high magnification. And back then, like we're talking, 2010 to 2012, there really wasn't anything for long range gas gun. It was all NRA style events. Like even PRS was still in its infancy back then, and nobody that I had shot with had even heard of PRS. So fast forward to about 20, I think it was 2019 or 2020, right around in there. I decided to get back into competitive shooting. And so there was this gas gun series that was coming out. I'm like, cool, that looks really awesome. So planned my gun out. I had a 20-inch H-bar sitting around. Finished buying out all the other parts, put the gun together. And then it came to the optic, well, what am I going to run? So with my experience with Burris in the past, I ended up going with a Burris XTR2 5 to 25. And the reason I went with that is because I wanted a 34 millimeter main tube, wanted the big objective lens, and I wanted a zero stop. And I wanted it in MRAD. Those are my 4 criteria that I wanted. Now, the reticles that come in, I didn't buy one with any of the Horus reticles. I bought one with the Burris SCR or SCAR reticle. So it's a very basic crosshair with hash marks on your windage and your elevation, but it doesn't have like the Christmas tree like you'd see in like a trimmer or the Mill XT for Night Force and so on and so forth. So, but it did have a zero stop. Now the zero stop on that scope, a little mushy at times, wasn't real positive on how you set it up. Glass was actually fairly good. Tracking was good. I never had any issues with tracking out of the scope. But the big shortcoming with that particular optic that I ran into was in a gas gun or a DMR style of match, you've got a pretty tight time to shoot the stage in. So series I shoot, which is quantified performance mainly, we're doing 90-second par times. And you can, like I've seen stages up to 20 shot or 20 hits for score. So when you're working with a lot of different ranges and a lot of different wind conditions at those different ranges, the simple graduated reticle like the SCR really starts to show its limitation because, yeah, you can hold over elevation, but you can't really hold windage as finely as you can with some of the more modern reticles. And to note, that one was also, the XTR2 was also a first focal plane optic, just like this one, which we'll get back to in a little bit. But after that, after, a couple of matches with that scope, I realized I really got to change my optic. It's not, the reticle in this is not cutting it for this style of shooting. So I looked around. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. So I was looking for about $800 or less. And so the only thing I could really find that I was prepared to jump money at was this one. Now, before I decided on this one, a friend of mine had a Gen 2 Razor, the 4.7 to 27 with the EBR7C, which is the same reticle that's in this scope. And I looked through it. I did some shooting with it. I really liked it. And so after that, I was like, I wonder if Vortex makes something that's a little bit less expensive with this same reticle. And sure enough, at the time, I found this scope. And so I ended up purchasing it. Bought a new mount because the mount I had previously just was not working. So I ended up selling that. So just kind of quick specs on this one. It's pretty much the same as the XTR2. It's got a 34 millimeter main tube, 56 millimeter objective. It has a zero stop. It has adjustable windage turret as far as, pull the cap off, zero it, put it back on. It's got a parallax adjustment, which is pretty standard on these style of scopes. But it had a couple of other things. Well, really one major thing that came in the box that the XTR didn't have, and that was the throw lever. Previously, before we got to the more modern scopes that we have today, you'd get the scope, you get a lens cloth, and you get a sunshade. That's it. And maybe the tools if you had a adjustable turret. But this package, so this scope, I think street price for these now are about $450 to $400, depending on if you catch them on a sale or something like that. But they've got the sunshade, you've got the lens cloth, you get a turret tool right here. Now this one came with my Razor. I don't know where the one for this scope was, but you get this, which fits right in these slots here, so you can take the caps off. And it's also got your throw lever here, which is a big help, especially on hot days when your hands are sweaty. You got to adjust magnification on the stage. You just hit the lever. You don't have to worry about trying to grip the zoom ring and then cranking on it. Now, comparatively, if we're going to compare glass back to the XTR2, I find this one has a little bit better glass. I think this is Chinese glass or Japanese. I'm not entirely sure. I know the Razors have Japanese glass. I'm not sure if the lower end ones do or not. But this is a made in China scope, sadly. But other than that, the glass is pretty decent. I've not noticed any like chromatic aberration at distance. I've not noticed any fisheye. Seems to have really good clarity edge to edge. And to be honest with you, between this and my Razor, I haven't really noticed a big difference between the glass. The Gen 3's a whole other world, but just comparing it to the Gen 2 that I have, I haven't really noticed a difference in that. Now, the big difference I noticed between the two is the turrets. Now, these do not have locking turrets. Not a big deal. I don't really need them. They're kind of nice to have, but I don't think they're really necessary in the competitive world, to be honest. It does have zero stop. It's really simple. You take, let me turn this up. So you take this cap here off, turret lifts up, there's a ring inside, put the ring down, turn it clockwise until it stops, put the cap back on at zero, put your retaining disc back in, and then your zero stop set. But with all Vortex things, or all Vortex zero stops, excuse me, it'll let you go up to a half minute below zero, or not a half minute, excuse me, half mil. And I think that's like a minute and a quarter or a minute and a half in MOA, which sometimes is good. I've never had to use that. I'm always dialing up, not down. So it's a very simple to set up zero stop. I really like the design. It's a lot better than the one the Burris had. But I don't know why they decided to change that with the Razor, but I think they did that because that one does have locking turrets, and the way that you zero it's a little bit different than these, but we're not going to go into that too much here. Going back to when I mentioned I had to get I bought a different mount. So the original mount, I had the XTR2, and I was originally going to keep it, but I had some issues with it. So it was the Burris Pepper Signature QD, and it had these polymer rings or split rings, so you could give it some. It was really weird how they had it set up, so you can have like different angles, so you could like move the scope instead of moving the turrets, and tightening it down to torque spec. You know, even with a 5.56 gun, I was having issues with it sliding within the rings. So I quickly got rid of that. This one's a SIG steel mount that I'm running. It's done all right. I've had an issue with the rear mounting screw coming loose at one match. I thought the scope was going out, but no, it was just the mount. And I also had another instance where I thought the scope was going out, and I got some, I guess you could call it a battle scar on here from that, which is right here. So I dug that into the side of a prop, and I was missing my targets off to the right, left, off to the left. And that was because it had deflected the scope tube enough that it was causing it to be off. Now, after that, I haven't had an issue with it since. It still tracks just fine. I've not had a chance to do a tall target test or a box test on this scope. Unfortunately, the ranges that I've had access to won't really let you do tall target tests. They're real fuddy. That's just what it is. But as far as, you know, dialing at matches and stuff like that, I dial it in the scope and I get what I put into it. I don't notice any over adjustment or under adjustment. Like it's not gaining or losing as you dial. And what I mean by that is, like, so if you dial 1 mil, you're not getting 1.1 or 0.9. Like I said, I've had this scope for 5 years ish. It's been on this gun long enough to go through 2 barrels. This gun's getting ready to get its 3rd barrel. And then roughly about 500 rounds on the 308. And overall, I've been really impressed with this scope. I mean, for what it is at the price point, I don't really see a need to upgrade too much, especially in the gas gun world, because it's got that EBR-7C reticle, which is more of a Christmas tree style. It has good glass. I mean, I'm not going to use this in something like NRL Hunter, where you know, I might be searching for a black target and shade. Even my Razor struggles with that. But like I said, overall, I really like this thing. I'd use it again. I ended up buying another one to throw on the wife's gun, which is a Gen 2 Ruger American and 6.5 Creedmoor. And first outing with it, like within the first box of ammo we shot through it, we had her on at 1100 with it. So the scope will do what you need it to do. I mean, you're not going to have some of the nicer features, and maybe, I don't want to say durability, but you may not have, you know, that 98% light transmission in the glass, or you might not have locking turrets, or you might not have fancy illumination knobs or whatever on these more expensive scopes. But if you're someone, you know, you're thinking about it, you just need something to get you by until you figure out what you really need, this is actually a really good starting point. The only other thing I'd say, if you want to spend a little bit more money, is go for the new Strike Eagle 5-25. Those are about $800. They have locking turrets. They do well too, but I don't really see, outside of the locking turrets, I really don't see a end user difference between this and the Strike Eagle. But that's really, you know, user preference at that point. So yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums up my thoughts on this scope. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Let me know what you think. Something I don't really see a whole lot on this scope. I figured I'd throw my 2 cents out there on it. Maybe point some people in the right direction. I'm thinking I might do a review on some binoculars that I've been using for the past couple of years. If you'd like to see it, you know, just let me know. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all in the next one.